One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
Okay, John, I want to jump right in, and this is a really neat conversation since we're really tagging along the part two of your conversation with Larry Scott about kind of the state of the Pac-12, which is in today's D1 ticker. And I want to ask you to start here about your conversation with Larry and your view of the Pac-12 Network specifically. You used the word, or excuse me, Larry used the word optimal with you a number of times in terms of why the league is comfortable with this model for the Pac-12 networks. I want to ask, what is the optimal outcome, near term and long term, for the Pac-12 networks? Larry used optimal in a different way. I'm asking you optimal in this sense.
Boy, well, near term, optimal would start with getting carriage on DirectTV, preferably late August, early September for them before football starts. And I think that this is going to be, every year people out here anticipate, are they going to get DirectTV or are they not? This, to me, is basically the line in the sand because the conference has a sweeping agreement with AT&T. It's more than just carriage on UVerse. It's sponsorship, it's equipment, and there's 2 years left on that deal with AT&T. And it's my view that if they don't sign a deal with DirectTV for carriage for this fall, that it's just not going to happen, and AT&T is going to walk away from the Pac-12 altogether, including UVerse and whatever sponsorship and equipment deals there are. They're just going to walk away, and it's going to fizzle out. So I think that this coming, late August, first couple days of September is going to be pivotal, not just for DirectTV carriage this fall, but for the league's relationship with AT&T going forward, many years. Because, like I said, 2 years left, and there's no way AT&T is going to re-up if there's no content on DirectTV. That doesn't seem to fit with what they want. So I would say optimal is getting DirectTV and getting it this fall, and firming up the long-term relationship with AT&T. They also need help, frankly, with some of the distributors on the West Coast. For instance, Cox, the Cox system in Southern California right now does not offer Pac-12 National, which means if you're an Oregon fan and you live in LA and you've got Cox, you can only see Oregon football if on the Pac-12 networks if they're playing one of the LA schools, because you can't get the Oregon games that are on the national network. There's plenty of distributors out here that don't have Pac-12 networks in HD, so they have a lot of issues short term, and the solution for optimal for all of those is getting carriage and getting it all fixed, and it starts with DirectTV. The long-term optimal, that's a good question. I think that they want the cost of or the value of their entity to continue to rise, and some of that has to do with subscriber numbers and distribution, but some of it has to do with the broader market in general for sports networks, live TV, media companies. Eventually, their deal with Fox and ESPN expires in 2024, and at that point, they're going to have the rights to all of their content going to market, and they would like that market to be as sizzling hot as it was a few years ago. To me, that's optimal. That's the way they would maximize the value of the Pac-12 networks, and in some ways justify having used this model, during these years where it's not performing well. If they get this huge windfall in 2024, I think that it would be, be a lot easier for them to say, see, we told you this was right.
I want to come back to that. I think that proposition of having that amount of leverage with all your rights today, as we sit in 2016, still feels like a heck of an opportunity. So I want to come back to that. I know you've done this math prior, but refresh our memories. Carriage on DirectTV for Pac-12 networks, what kind of annual sum from a carriage fee in total would we be looking at if they were able to get that deal done? What kind of ballpark is that?
Well, I've done it kind of back of the envelope math, and it ultimately will depend on the subscriber fee, right? And most of their, or all of their current distributors are paying 80 cents roughly per sub in market, and DirectTV does not want to pay that, and that's been the big stumbling block. They don't think it's worth it, and I don't know exactly what DirectTV's last offer was for, but they certainly I don't see. Here's the problem for the Pac-12: if they want to get on DirectTV, they probably have to lower their sub fee. If they lower their sub fee for DirectTV, they got to lower it for everybody else, because that's the way they have their contracts written. So signing with DirectTV for 60 cents per sub would change the business model for everybody, and it would undermine their revenue stream. If we assume just for a second, that that DirectTV would sign for about 80 cents, or what they're getting, what the league's getting from Comcast and Dish and all, we're looking at, I think, anywhere of $2.5 million per school per year in additional revenue. Not insignificant by any stretch, and that would bump up the Pac-12 Network distribution figures to the range that a lot of schools had kind of anticipated, and some schools had even budgeted for. But they're still going to be lagging in revenue behind the SEC and Big Ten schools for sure, because that would only get them up. If you add $3.5 million from DirectTV, that would only get them up to, close to 5, right in there, and that would still be lagging. Now, if they get DirectTV, maybe that would help them with Charter. Charter's kind of moved basically in lockstep with DirectTV for the last few years with the Pac-12 Network. So, I don't know how much more the Charter situation would add to the bottom line, but we're looking $3 million, give or take, per school per year, I think. And that's if it's right about 80 cents per sub, but it may not be. And if it's not, then you've got to rework the math for all of their partners, and that's the big stumbling block for them.
Right. So let's finish on that line real quick. What's your level of confidence that a deal gets done with DirectTV?
Less than 50-50. I think at this point, given that they were so far apart last September, and that nothing has changed, you would think that if they were going to get it done, it would have been on the heels of the DirectTV, the AT&T takeover of DirectTV, with the momentum from that and the relationships that the league has with AT&T. You'd figure if it was going to get done, it was going to get done last September. So and now it's been another year, and DirectTV doesn't have Pac-12 networks, and DirecTV's doing just fine, and AT&T's doing just fine. So I think there's probably even less motivation for AT&T to move to the other side of the fence and meet the league halfway, or a little bit more than halfway. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence at this point that it's going to get done, frankly. And again, they were so far apart last September. I mean, Larry Scott took AT&T's final offer to the schools, and they rejected it 11-0. Washington State abstained because they did not have an acting president, or the president had passed away, and so they abstained. But every other school rejected the offer, and I don't know how or why AT&T would come back from there with a deal that was so much better for the league. I just don't see what AT&T's motivation is for that right now, frankly. And like I said, if they don't get this deal done, then you have to wonder about the long-term partnership.
You did a calculation towards the end of this piece about a valuation of the Pac-12 networks, a 7x on on current revenue.
I failed pre-algebra, so nobody should take that seriously.
Regardless, my question is, it does seem the long-term nature of this play is being led by the conference CEOs, the presidents and chancellors. You arrived at this number of if they sold 50% at the current valuation, again, of the calculation you did, at $115 million of annual revenue at a 7x, that we'd arrive at this calculation of $33 million per school. My question specifically is in regards to if that were to happen in any capacity, no matter the valuation or the percentage of sale, do you have a sense of that total number for each institution, how that would be split between the institutional side of the campus and athletics specifically?
It's a great question, and I have no idea. You would think that athletics would get the vast majority of it, but who knows? What lurks in the minds of the folks in the ivory towers. I mean, that's a great question, and I'm sure that would, if it got to that, there would certainly be some heated debate on some campuses, I would think. It's hard to make the argument that athletics wouldn't deserve all of it, but you never know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I just don't have any idea. And that valuation is definitely, first of all, it is definitely an approximation for sure. And again, and I don't know, it's so hard to know what the landscape is going to be like, in eight years or so. We get such different data points right now. You hear about all the cord cutting and ESPN's cost cutting moves, and then Fox pays $250 million a year for half the Big Ten's inventory, and so you're left wondering, well, is there still a lot of value, or is there not a lot of value? So I just don't know. But what I do know is that the league, more than any other conference I've seen, there's this bifurcation between what is best for athletics and then what the CEOs and the commissioner think is best. And it's completely different paths. And the commissioner and the CEOs think, you know what, we'll take our hits. We'll take our hits. We want long-term value. And yet, when you add up the numbers of how much the league could be losing in media revenue per school per year over the course of the 8 years until their Tier 1 deal ends, it's an astronomical figure. It's bigger than the figure that they would get if they sold 50% of the networks, I think. So it's just an interesting, I just don't ever remember seeing a situation in college athletics where you had the commissioner and the chancellors and presidents thinking one thing and heading down that path, and then you've got the people on the front lines just thinking, this is not good. This doesn't work for us. They should all be working together, and it just doesn't seem like that's the case. But that's just my sense of it. I don't know. I'm not in the meetings, so.
Right. Well, I, for one, think the opportunity of having all your rights on the market at the same time, whatever it looks like in 2024, is still an incredible opportunity. And as you mentioned, who knows what the landscape looks like from a digital and linear standpoint. But if that's the play and we need to wait until then, it's a hell of a bet. It seems like an amazing bet. And it's very fascinating to watch somebody go at this revenue stream very differently. I want to close with this, John. Do you have a sense of within the league ranks, specifically by institution, athletically, which schools are most adverse to the current format and as a block maybe trying to push conference leadership to act in a certain way?
I don't have what I can tell you about that is that the presidents of Arizona State and Oregon State are those that move are in Larry Scott's corner.
So Michael Crow
and
Ed Ray, right?
Yeah, they are in there, and they were part of the group that hired him. You know, a lot of the presidents and chancellors have turned over since Larry was hired. Those guys and Gene Block at UCLA were all part of the group that hired him. And John Hennessy at Stanford was a key member of. He led the search that hired Larry. Now Hennessy is stepping away this summer, so there's only 3 left. And I know that ASU and Oregon State are very much in favor of rubber stamping what the league office believes. And I think that that's something that Pac-12 fans should be thinking about too. Should Oregon State and ASU really be the ones that are driving the conversation in the CEO meetings? That I'm not sure that doesn't seem right. You know, that's like in the Big Ten, having Minnesota and Purdue being the schools that are leading the conversation and the direction that the conference goes. There's something wrong with that. You know, Mississippi and Tennessee and SEC. I'm not sure that dynamic in the CEO meetings means that they're going to come out with the best results for the conference. I don't know. I think that's a point that the league needs to think about. Everybody in the league needs to be thinking about is, should ASU and Oregon State be driving the conversation?
Yeah, interesting. It's an even greater level of intrigue, and the life cycle of presidents and ADs and commissioners, for that matter, would point to the fact of very few of these individuals being still in their current roles come, if we do get to 2022, 3, 4, when this is really coming to a leverage point. Many people will have changed by then.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if Larry will still be the commissioner at that point. I think there's probably a decent chance he won't be, just because another opportunity is going to come along and he's going to take it. He's an ambitious guy, and the first time I ever interviewed him, he told me that what he really enjoys is unlocking value from entities, whether it was a Women's Tennis Association or the Pac-12, unlocking value. And, to this point, he certainly had many years of unlocking value with the Pac-12, and now it seems like it's in a little bit of a stasis. So also we'll see if he remains if he remains on until the next round of negotiations. That's 8 years. That's a long time.
You're right. Thanks, John. And if you're listening to this interview and you haven't read John's piece yet that came out yesterday, it's in the top few entries of D1 Ticker. There's also a link within the article to the first part of John's conversation with Larry Scott about the Asia and Pacific Rim Initiative. All good stuff. Appreciate the time, John. I know you're on vacation, so we very much appreciate you stepping away.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
You got it.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.